I signed the lease renewal while Dad explained to his business partner why I couldn't join them for the quarterly review meeting. Riley's busy with her startup thing. You know how it is. Young people think they can change the world from a laptop. We were having lunch at Morton's, Dad's favorite steakhouse. Just the three of us, Dad, his partner Gerald, and me. The invitation had seemed strange when he'd called, but I'd accepted anyway. Family was family even when they didn't understand what you did. Still doing the app development? Gerald asked politely, cutting into his ribeye. Software as a service, I corrected. Enterprise resource planning for mid-sized companies. Dad waved his hand dismissively. Apps, software, whatever. It's all the same. Point is, it's not real business. Not like what Gerald and I built. What they'd built was Hammond and Associates, a commercial real estate firm. Decent company, solid reputation, annual revenue around $18 million. Dad had started it 30 years ago and he was proud of it. What he didn't know was that I'd built something significantly larger. The problem with your generation, Gerald said, is you all want instant success. You don't understand that real wealth takes decades to build. Look at your father. 30 years of hard work, and now Hammond and Associates owns 12 commercial properties across the city. Actually, 11. Dad corrected. We sold the Market Street building last month. Good deal too, $34 million to some tech company. I took a sip of water and said nothing. My point exactly, Gerald continued. That's real business. Real assets. Real transactions. Not some website that could disappear tomorrow. I'd founded Catalyst Solutions 6 years ago with a Stanford classmate. We built cloud-based ERP systems. Software that helped medium-sized businesses manage their operations, finances, inventory, and workforce. Our first client had been a regional manufacturer. Our second had been Boeing. We now served 950 enterprise clients across 40 countries. Last year, revenue hit $680 million. We had 1,800 employees. And last month, we'd started quietly acquiring commercial real estate to house our expanding operations. Including the Market Street building Dad's company had just sold. For $34 million. To my company. Riley, your father and I are worried about you, Gerald said with practiced concern. You're 28 years old. You should be thinking about stability, about building equity, about your future. I am thinking about my future, I said. By chasing startup dreams? Dad shook his head. Honey, 90% of startups fail. You're throwing away your prime earning years. You should be working at a real company, building real experience, preparing for real success. Like what you built? I asked. Exactly like what we built. Dad gestured around the restaurant. Hammond and Associates is successful because we focused on tangible assets. Buildings. Property. Things you can see and touch. Not some abstract software that exists in the cloud. The cloud isn't abstract, Dad. It's just servers in data centers. Whatever it is, it's not real business. He leaned forward. Riley, I'm saying this because I love you. It's time to give up the startup fantasy. I can get you a job at Hammond and Associates. Junior associate position. You'd start at $60,000, learn the business from the ground up. That's generous, Gerald added. Most people your age would kill for that opportunity. I checked my phone. The property transfer documents should have been filed this morning. Everything was proceeding on schedule. What are you doing on that phone? Dad asked irritably. We're trying to have a serious conversation about your future. Just checking something for work. Work, he repeated with air quotes. Riley, when are you going to accept that what you're doing isn't working? You still live in that tiny apartment. You drive a 10-year-old Camry. You have no assets, no property, no equity. The tiny apartment was a 4,200 square foot penthouse I owned in Russian Hill. The Camry was a deliberate choice. I also had a Porsche and a Range Rover in my garage. And as of this morning, I owned 14 commercial properties across 3 cities. But Dad had never visited my apartment, never asked about my finances, never shown interest in the concrete details of my success. Dad, I'm doing fine. Fine isn't good enough. You're wasting your Stanford education. You're wasting your potential. You're wasting your life on this startup nonsense that will never pay the bills. Speaking of bills, Gerald interjected, we got some interesting news this morning. The tech company that bought our Market Street building? They want to acquire the Townsend Plaza building too. Dad nodded. Came in with an all-cash offer. $42 million. Above market value. We'd be fools to turn it down. What company is it? I asked. Catalyst something, Gerald said, checking his phone. Catalyst Solutions. Ever heard of them? I've heard of them, I said quietly. Apparently they're expanding rapidly. Need office space for some big hiring push. The broker said they're one of the fastest-growing enterprise software companies in the country. Dad laughed. See, Riley? That's what real success looks like. A company with enough money to buy multiple buildings. That's what you should aspire to. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, our chief financial officer. Townsend Plaza acquisition approved. Board signed off. Making offer this afternoon. Also, property transfer for Market Street is now public record. Your father's company will receive notice within the hour. You okay? Dad asked. You look distracted. I'm fine. Actually, Dad, there's something I should probably tell you. I was interrupted by the buzz of his phone. He glanced at it, frowned, then opened an email. I watched his face change as he read. The color drained slowly, replaced by confusion, then disbelief. What is it? Gerald asked. Dad turned his phone so Gerald could see. It's from the title company. The Market Street sale. They're sending the final documentation for our records. He looked up at me, his expression strange. Riley, this email says the buyer is Catalyst Solutions. And the purchasing entity is listed as Riley Hammond, CEO and majority owner. Gerald grabbed the phone. That can't be right. It is right, I said simply. Catalyst Solutions is my company. I founded it 6 years ago. We bought your Market Street building last month because we needed additional office space for our West Coast expansion. The silence at the table was profound. Your company? Dad's voice was weak. You own Catalyst Solutions? Yes. I'm the founder and I own 54%. Current valuation is $8.2 billion. Gerald made a choking sound. We generate about $680 million in annual revenue. We serve 950 clients globally. We employ 1,800 people. And yes, we're acquiring the Townsend Plaza building. We're offering $42 million all cash. The offer goes out in, I checked my watch, about 20 minutes. Dad was staring at me like I was a stranger. $8 billion? Give or take. Depends on the quarter. Last valuation was actually $8.6 billion, but I'm being conservative. But you said you did software, Gerald whispered. I do. Enterprise resource planning software. It's a $50 billion global market. Catalyst owns about 8% of it. We're growing faster than our main competitors. SAP, Oracle, Workday. Analysts predict we'll be the market leader within 5 years. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Marcus. Townsend Plaza offer just went out. Also, your father's broker just called asking if you're the same Riley Hammond. Word is spreading fast. Dad's phone started ringing. Then Gerald's. They both ignored them. Why didn't you tell us? Dad asked, his voice barely audible. I tried. 4 years ago, I invited you to Catalyst Series C funding announcement. We'd raised $200 million at a $2.1 billion valuation. You said you were too busy to attend a computer party. Dad flinched. 3 years ago, Forbes featured me in their 30 under 30 list. I sent you the article. You never mentioned it. 2 years ago, I keynote at the Global Technology Summit. I called to tell you about it. You said, that's nice, and changed the subject to Hammond and Associates quarterly numbers. We didn't understand, Gerald said weakly. You didn't try. You decided I was a failure chasing startup nonsense. And nothing I said would convince you otherwise. Dad's face had gone gray. The building we just sold you. The $34 million. That's less than 1% of my company's valuation. And less than 2% of our annual revenue. It's a rounding error, Dad. Both their phones were ringing continuously now. The news was clearly spreading through their professional network. The job offer, Dad said slowly. I just offered you a $60,000 junior associate position. I know. It was kind of you. I stood and gathered my things. But I'm going to decline. I'm a little too busy running an $8 billion company. I'm sure you understand. Riley, wait. Dad reached for my arm. I have a board meeting in an hour. We're discussing our expansion into European markets. Then I have calls with 3 Fortune 500 companies about enterprise contracts. After that, I'm flying to Singapore for a conference. I looked at both of them, Dad and Gerald, sitting there with their phones ringing, their faces shocked, their entire understanding of reality crumbling. Oh, and Dad? About those buildings Catalyst is acquiring? We're planning to buy 6 more commercial properties in the city over the next 18 months. If Hammond and Associates has any other assets you'd like to sell, have your broker contact our real estate division. We pay fair prices and close quickly. You're buying us out? Gerald whispered. I'm buying buildings my company needs. The fact that you own them is irrelevant. Business is business, right? That's what you always taught me. Dad stood up, his voice desperate. Riley, please. Let's talk about this. I was wrong. I didn't understand. But we're family. Family supports each other, Dad. Family asks questions before passing judgment. Family shows interest in each other's lives. I picked up my bag. You spent 6 years telling me I'd never make it. That startups were nonsense. That I was wasting my life. You never once asked what Catalyst actually did, how many clients we had, or what our revenue was. Because you never told us. I tried to tell you. You didn't want to listen. You wanted me to fail so your conventional path would seem superior. I headed toward the exit. Enjoy your lunch. Dad. You'll receive the formal offer for Townsend Plaza within the hour. I recommend you accept it. It's a good deal. I walked out of Morton's while both their phones continued ringing. Behind me I heard Dad say something, his voice breaking. I didn't turn around. The news hit the commercial real estate community within hours. Hammond and Associates sells to daughter's tech company. Riley Hammond's $8 billion Catalyst Solutions expands real estate portfolio. The story was too perfect. Local girl builds empire, buys from father who doubted her. My phone exploded with messages. 14 missed calls from Dad. 27 texts from various family members. An email from Gerald with the subject line, "We had no idea." I read Dad's first text, "Riley, please call me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was blind. I was wrong about everything. Please, we need to talk." I archived it without responding. The next morning, Hammond and Associates formally accepted our offer for Townsend Plaza. The press release went out at noon. By evening, it was the top story in the local business journal. Dad showed up at Catalyst's headquarters that night. Security called me from the lobby. "Your father is here," the guard said. "He says it's urgent. He's asking to see you." I looked out my office window at the city lights. Dad was 12 floors below, probably desperate, probably rehearsing an apology. "Tell him I'm in a meeting that will last indefinitely." "Are you sure, Ms. Hammond?" "I'm sure." I watched from the window as Dad left the building, his shoulders slumped. Part of me wanted to feel guilty. Part of me wanted to run down and forgive everything. But the larger part, the part that had endured 6 years of dismissal and condescension, remembered every lunch, every phone call, every conversation where he told me I was wasting my life on startup nonsense. 3 months later, Catalyst acquired 2 more Hammond and Associates properties. Dad didn't resist either sale. The market knew what was happening. His company was being slowly absorbed by his daughter's empire. 6 months later, Hammond and Associates quietly dissolved. Dad and Gerald retired. The local business journal ran an obituary of sorts. End of an era. Hammond and Associates closes after 30 years. The article mentioned that Riley Hammond, daughter of founder Tom Hammond, had become one of the youngest self-made female billionaires in technology. It mentioned that her company now owns 6 of Hammond and Associates' former properties. It didn't mention that Tom Hammond had spent years telling his daughter she'd never make it. But everyone in the commercial real estate community knew. Dad sent one final email a year after our lunch at Morton's. "I see now what I couldn't see then. You built something I couldn't comprehend. You succeeded in ways I couldn't measure. And I destroyed our relationship because I was too proud to admit I was wrong. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know that I finally see you. And I'm sorry it took losing you to open my eyes." I read it 3 times. Then saved it in a folder labeled "Too Late." As some doors close forever. Some relationships break so completely that the pieces can't be reassembled. Dad had spent 6 years making sure I knew I'd never make it. I'd made it. And he'd have to live with that knowledge from the outside looking in. 2 years after that lunch, Catalyst went public. Opening valuation, $15 billion. My personal stake, $8.1 billion. I bought a house in Pacific Heights for $28 million. The previous owner? Gerald's sister, who decided to cash out while property values were high. Some people said I was being petty, that I was rubbing my success in their faces. But I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. I was just building my empire. And if that empire happened to include every building my father once owned, every property he'd once been proud of, every asset he'd used to measure his success, that wasn't revenge. That was just business. And business, as Dad always said, was what mattered most. Forbes ran a feature 5 years later. Riley Hammond, the billionaire who bought her father's legacy. The article detailed everything. The lunch, the dismissal, the property acquisitions. They asked if I had regrets. None, I told them. My father taught me that real business meant tangible assets. Buildings you can see and touch. I just followed his advice. And your relationship with him? Some relationships are also tangible assets. Once you sell them, they're gone. Dad read the article. I know, because he sent one final text. You became everything I said you couldn't be. I'm proud. And I'm sorry. I deleted it. Pride from someone who never believed in you means nothing. Absolutely nothing at all.